Hello, my name's Lyndon. Thank you so much for coming to my channel. In this video, we're going to talk about busking. This was for Thomas. He sent me an email saying, don't you think it would be a good idea to do a video about busking and the various kind of, what kind of kit should I use or what should I be thinking about? And he said that he felt that I've probably got a lot of experience in this. And I have. I've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours, very happy hours actually, of busking. In fact, when I lived in London, it was very hard for me to play in my apartment. I had pretty hostile neighbours below and not so friendly person above as well. They really didn't like it when I played my saxophone at all. So busking was actually a fantastic way for me to get out and actually play my saxophone. And I can tell you that so many cool things have happened to me as a result of busking. The list is endless, and if I had time and we had a beer or something, I could tell you hundreds of superb busking stories. So with busking, I think you really need to make sure that you are not making a nuisance of yourself if you're going to go and play in the middle of the street. That's the really biggest thing. You're not going to disturb shopkeepers and you're not going to make a nuisance of the music, because if you're going to go busking in the street where lots of potentially shoppers are, I guess, then there's going to be shops around there and they're trying to conduct businesses, or they're on their phone, or they're trying to talk to the customer. And if you're there honking on your saxophone and causing a nuisance, then you're going to get a really bad reaction from people. So I'd say the first thing that you need to do is to pick your spot really, really, really carefully. Now, I live in a town in the UK. It's about an hour outside of London, and it's called Bedford. And in Bedford, there's a pedestrianised area, and the council allow buskers on there, and you can actually contact your local council and find out if you need a busking permit or license or not. Usually they will just allow you, if there is a pedestrianised area, they will pretty much allow you to do that. When I used to busk in London, I used to busk outside supermarkets. And that was because in the days when people actually used cash, people would be kind of doing their shopping. I'd be by the exit of the supermarket on the street, and then people walking out after doing their shopping had hands full of change that they would just deposit in the case if they liked what I was playing. So I think that's a pretty good strategy. The only downside with that is that you're not committing an offence, so the police can't really move you on because you're not really committing an offence, and the police don't want to get involved. It's only if you're blocking up the sidewalk, or the pavement as we call it in the UK, if you're making a nuisance of yourself again by blocking things up, or just by getting in the way of the traffic of ordinary pedestrians. If you're not doing that, usually the police will pretty much leave you alone. If they do come and move you on, you've got no choice. You really do have to move on, but usually the police are not interested. And if you're a good saxophone player, it usually enhances the environment. And if you don't stick around for too long, if you stick around for an hour or something, it usually enhances the environment, and shops are really quite happy to have you there. And I've actually had shopkeepers come out and say, can you play outside of my shop please, because it attracts attention. So it can be really well received if you play the right material. So what is the kit? So picking your spot is really, really, really crucial. Don't annoy other people. Don't get in the way of the pedestrians that are either side of you. And check out with your local authority if you've got permission to do this, and do it properly, because it will save you a lot of grief in the long run. So what about kit? Well, you could just go out just with the saxophone and play just with the sax. Just take your instrument, stop. And I used to do that when I first started. I didn't have, but I don't even think battery powered speakers were a thing in those days. So I did used to busk like that, but I think it's massively better if you get yourself a speaker. And you can nowadays get really very affordable battery powered speakers. And what I've done is I've had a look on the computer for you, and I've done some searches for the right kind of speaker. So let's go over to the computer now and have a look at a couple of pieces of, I think, really essential kit. So if you go to Google and type in battery speaker, You'll come up with all kinds of options. As you can see, there's untold options, quite bewildering. And you can buy this type of thing in your local store. But I think, honestly, they're really just way over the top. I think what I would get is something along these lines. Actually, I think this one is too small and not powerful enough, but this would be pretty much ideal. So this is a nice, big, powerful speaker. It's a good price at $199. You could probably get something a bit cheaper. You could probably get it about $150, but between $150 and $199. This has got, let's have a look. So you've got up to 4 hours of playtime on a rechargeable battery. You can also run it from the mains, which is really good as well. Now, it does say that it's got a trolley style. It's got trolley style wheels and an extendable handle. Personally, I pretty much think that these wheels would get destroyed if you were using it a lot on pavements around the world. I don't think those wheels would last very well at all. I think if you're using these trolley wheels on a flat surface, trying to move it from room to room, or at a gig, whether you've got like nice wooden floors or even floors, I think it'd be absolutely fine, would last a long time. But if you're doing it on uneven pavements or up and down curbs, these wheels are going to get destroyed straight away. So I do think you need a trolley. What's good about this is you've got several different types of input, so you could input a mic if you wanted to, plus it's wireless, which is really good because you could have your backing tracks on your phone and wirelessly connect to your speaker, and that way you don't have to have an iPad or your phone lying around for somebody to potentially snatch while you're busking in the street. So I think this type of speaker is really good. I personally wouldn't use the mics. The mics might be nice for an announcement, but otherwise usually the mics are really poor quality. But the speaker itself, they're pretty good. They're okay, and I think you'll find this type of speaker under lots of different names, and this one is a Sub-Zero one from a company in the UK called Gear for Music. By the way, I'm not on any kind of commission for Gear for Music, and unfortunately I can't get you a discount, so sorry about that. I did contact them, but they didn't want to play ball with me when it came to electrical equipment. The other thing that I would get then on the internet, I've pre-searched for this, is a foldable trolley. The search term that I used for this was foldable trolley, and then I went to Amazon for no particularly good reason. There's millions of these trolleys, but this looks pretty good to me. You've got this extendable arm here. It takes up a lot of weight. It says a maximum of 90 kilos and easy storage because it all folds up. So that's great. And I have something like this, not this particular model, but something like this hung up in my garage, and I've used it on tens of occasions, and it lasted really well. I think they're ideal. So what you do is you put your trolley, you put your speaker rather on the bottom of the trolley, and you put a bungee cord around it, and you can also put your saxophone on the top of the trolley and bungee that to it as well, so that you've got your speaker and your saxophone all in one nice neat place. So if you're in a car, you can park your car in a car park, get everything on the trolley, and then wheel it down to where you're going to do your busking session with. And what does it say here? Yeah, so I don't know what that's doing. It's very loud wheels or something, but you know, these wheels are really robust. This will go over uneven surfaces and up and down curbs. This is exactly the type of thing that you would need, and it will prolong the life of the speaker as well. So those are two really kind of crucial items: a really good decent speaker and a really good trolley. And as you can see, this trolley is £34. They do cheaper ones. Look, Amazon have got their own £29 one. So I think just have a look around and see what suits you. And I think that these are really good suggestions for busking with. So those are two really essential pieces of equipment that I think you'll need: a really good quality speaker and a trolley to carry everything on. And if you get that big trolley that I showed you on Amazon, then by the way, I'm not on any kind of commission for any of this equipment. I'm just sharing with you what I think. You can put your speaker on the bottom, saxophone on the top, bungee everything up, and you're ready to go. You could lift that up and put it in the car, or you're using public transport. That's absolutely fantastic. I think that's That's the perfect busking kit. Now, I wouldn't bother miking up my saxophone because saxophones are quite loud enough anyway. So the next thing consideration is around your backing tracks. If you're going to be using backing tracks through the speaker, and if you've got it on an iPad, not too happy about that, because there are some people that would do bad things to buskers and take advantage of you, and you're really quite vulnerable if you're standing there, you've got a saxophone, you've got your case out where people are putting money, and you've got your speaker, and if you've got an iPad on the top, you never know, somebody could come and try and snatch your iPad and run off, which would be really bad. And so this way, if you've got Bluetooth, you could have your backing tracks on your phone or a small device and have that in your pocket on your person, so you are less vulnerable. Regarding safety, then if somebody comes over, and imagine if somebody comes over and takes your case and runs off because it's got money in it, clearly it'd be a pretty desperate thing. It's never happened to me. I've never really had any hassle busking, but let's just say that could happen. You go running, you put your saxophone down and go running after the person to get the 20 or 30 pounds that are in your case, and then when you come back to after your little sprint, your saxophone's gone. So don't do that. If somebody runs off and they've got 20 or 30 quid, just make a lot of noise. Hey, 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 you know, stop that person. Just do that. Don't leave your saxophone on the spot, because there might be two of them. One takes your case full of money, the other one waits until he runs off, and then they take your sax, which is worth considerably more, and your speaker. So it could be disastrous in that way. So usually, as I've said, I've never had any problems, and usually buskers don't have problems, but you've got to keep your wits about you. Other things that you might want to consider is that if you're going to stand out in the middle of the street and play your saxophone, you do attract more colourful people, let's say. And certainly if somebody might have been down the pub and had a couple of drinks, and they might find this the ideal moment to come up and share information or dance in front of you. Generally speaking, if people behave like that, when I've ever gone busking, I just let them get on with it and just crack on with playing my tunes and just focus on that, and eventually they lose interest. I wouldn't really engage with people if they're acting erratically. Another thing that's worth bearing in mind, that if you're busking in an area where busking is allowed, be sensitive to other buskers. If there is another busker there, then saxophones are really loud. You know, make sure you're far enough away that you're not going to interfere with what they're doing. Or what you could do is just go and talk to them and say, hello, I'm thinking of busking here in a little while. What time how long are you going to be here for? What time do you finish? Because I don't want to, rain on your parade or tread on your toes, as it were, not rain on your parade. And speaking of rain, another top tip is take some wet weather gear as well. That would be a really, really good idea. And not just for you, but for your electrical equipment. If you're going to go out there with a battery powered speaker, which has cost you a couple of £100, if it starts really, really pouring down with rain, it would be a great idea to have something to cover it with. So even something like a plastic bin liner would be ideal. That will cover it and that will completely protect it from the rain. All of your electrical stuff could be covered up by a bin liner, and that would be a great idea. So take a bin liner with you. Another top tip is that if you have a hard saxophone case, when people throw money, and believe me they do, they throw money into it, what happens is it bounces, and it will bounce from the case out onto the street again, and that's really, really annoying. So what you want to do, this is a really sort of good top tip from years of experience, get a piece of cloth, could be anything like a t-shirt or something, and line the inside of your case with the t-shirt or a piece of cloth. That way when people throw money into it, it hits the cloth and it stays put, and it doesn't bounce out. And if you need to make a quick getaway because of bad weather, or somebody comes along and says, can you please stop, you just gather up your piece of cloth, all of the money is in there, you put that in your bag and off you go, instead of having to scrape the money, or scrape loads and loads and loads of coins from the sides of your case, and you've got nothing to put it into. You've got a hole, you can just wrap it up in the t-shirt and you're good to go, and you can put that straight in your bag. If you've got a little rucksack or something, put that straight in your bag, and then you can count it when you get home. What sort of material should you play when you're busking? Well, I would go with big fat hits. If I was you, I would be thinking about Take 5 and Pink Panther and Careless Whisper and Summertime and Jubal and, really kind of big hits, Girl from Ipanema, and just think of the biggest hits that you could just Google saxophone hits and play those. I would definitely play those. And if you play obscure material that you love but nobody's ever heard of, you're not going to take as much money, and that's not maybe why you're going busking. You might want to go busking for other reasons, including to cut your teeth in getting used to playing in front of an audience. And also, like I said, if you live in a place where you can't practice, it might be quite nice to go out and have a bit of a practice. But if you're trying to, get as much money as you can for while you're busking, you really need to think about the material. And I would have a set list, so you don't stand there thinking, now what was that tune? I know there's this brilliant tune. Just have a set list, write it down so that you're organized when you get out there. I would also take some sort of business card or a card of some sort, because people might come over and say, hey, would you like to be in my band, play at my flower stall, can you come and play at my wedding, can you play at my birthday party, or I'm having a barbecue and would you like to come along, and what's your number? People want to get in contact with you. People will come and talk to you if you go busking, and all kinds of cool things will potentially happen. So it'd be really good to get organized and have a business card or something with your number on that you can give people when they come over and see you. These days you can even get people to scan a QR code with your PayPal address so that they can just pay directly into your PayPal if they've got no change. How about that? It's a really good top tip. And what you can do is you could print that out and laminate it and just stand that in your case. Absolutely fantastic idea. People just come along. There's also something in the UK called the Busking Project, and they have a similar scheme where you can get a QR code and make it so that people can pay digitally. It's a smart thing to do, because in this day and age people don't carry money around or carry small change around in the same way that they used to. Busking is quite if you've never done it before, it's not stressful exactly, but you're gonna feel it, because you cross a line when you're walking or trolleying down, you're walking down with your instrument, you're just another member of the public with a couple of interesting pieces of luggage. But once you get that saxophone out of the case and you start playing, especially in your first time, pretty much every fibre of your being will be going inside your head. What on earth are you doing? Are you mad? Have you lost your mind? Put your saxophone away. You're just going to make a fool of yourself. And it's maybe you wouldn't have those thoughts, but it's likely that you will. And I think that that's actually a very good thing, especially if you want to go and perform in a band or you want to go to a jam session. If you're brave enough and have the guts to go out and play on the street, then it makes all other gigs very much easier, I promise you, because at other gigs you've actually been invited in one way or another to be there. And when you go busking, nobody invited you to be there. You just rocked up and decided to do it. So, it does take some guts. And I think it's really good for your thickening skin and getting used to doing gigs. I think it's probably one of the hardest gigs that you can do. So how much money can you make doing busking? Well, it's really down to you, the material that you play, how long you're going to go for, what the weather was like when you were doing it, how many people were around you. There's a lot of variables, but to give you an idea, I think 30 or 40 pounds an hour is completely achievable. In dollars, what would that be? $50 an hour. If you choose a good spot and you're playing good material and you're a nice player, I think that is completely achievable. Of course, it does entirely depend. But as an anecdotal story, when my wife when my wife first gave birth to our son, I kind of freaked out. That first week I thought, oh my God, I've got to get some extra money. I'm gonna need money. And I went out twice a day, and this was 20 years ago, 19 years ago. I went out twice a day, and I was in London, and I was living in quite a nice area of London, in North London, and called Finchley, if you want to check it out. And I went around Finchley, around the area. There's another area called Crouch End that was really quite a wealthy area, and I went and stood outside a Waitrose, which is a kind of supermarket, and I played outside. I targeted, high end. That's Jay Metcalf at my front door again. Did you hear that? He comes around all the time. Never mind. I used to target high end supermarkets because the people that were shopping in there were quite wealthy and they always had lots of change. And I must tell you that I went out 2 or 3 times a day over the course of 7 days, and I made £700, and that was 20 years ago. And that was my all-time record for busking. I think I was a bit exhausted from it by the end, and it's not something I'd want to do on a regular basis. But like I said, if you're a nice player and you really, if you know what you're doing, I think you can do very, very well with busking. And there are people that make a full-time living professionally busking. Right, I haven't mentioned my website. Please go and visit my website. If you find these videos that I'm making useful, you can also buy me a coffee if you'd like to. I'm still busking, you see, at heart. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video. I hope that was helpful. Take care. Bye-bye.